All right, and greetings everyone. I want to welcome you to the stream here. I'm assuming you can all hear me. I'll do a check in just a second for that. I apologize for the lateness of the beginning here. I had some technical difficulties we're working over, but we're here, we're ready to get started, and we're going to be painting several assets tonight. I wanted to show you briefly what these assets will look like, so let me bring this over. Okay, there we go. For some reason it just took a dive. There we go. There it is. Okay. So we're going to be painting some of these models here. I've already done this top left one, which was the picture you were seeing earlier. And we will be doing a complete rebuild of this asset here. We'll be painting this one here. And we'll be painting this one here and this one here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring this guy back to the other screen here, if it will allow me to do that. There we go. Now I can move it nicely. There we go. So move that over there. Whoop, everything went black. There we go. All right, you're back. I see you guys again. All right, so good evening. Thank you for being with me. And we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to dock this over here for my work there. And let's keep this running there. Perfect. All right, so what we have here is a model. This is the original model here on the left. And what I'm going to be doing is taking you through, I've built up the high poly here and I've rebuilt the low poly asset here. So you can see it's quite different from the original as far as the structure, and some of the angles were not correct on some of these things. So I just made these changes, and there's no reason for these ridges to be present in the low poly. That just adds extra weight to the object. So we're just going to go ahead with this. Let me just send out a quick message, let everybody know that we are in fact up and running, and we are live. Come check out some assets being painted in real time. All right, just let people know. All right. Oh, we got it. Okay. Perfect. And if you are new to the streams, I wanted to welcome you. Anything that I'm going to be showing off tonight, I do have tutorials on the site for you. If you go down here in the bottom right here, there are tutorials on the site for all of this. So if you have a question, if you wanted to ask a question, if there's something you don't understand, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to stop and explain. So we have our asset here. We have, we're going to hide this guy. This was the original. We don't need him anymore. So we have our two versions here, the high poly and the low poly. So the idea is I've taken the low poly here, and if I pull up the textures, the unwrap, let's bring that up. It's off screen. I'll bring it over for you here. I'm going to be combining this texture set with another lamp that will fill this space, because right now this is a lot of wasted space. But here we have our lamp here. It's been fully unwrapped. So we're ready to jump right into painting it. So that's what you came to see. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to export the model. Say export selected. And I have a folder here. Yes, you can go to sleep. Thank you. My laptop next to me here. Okay. So on the D drive, we have a stream folder. We're just going to be using that for tonight. And in the work folder here. So this is, I forget which one this is now. Desk lamp number something or other. I think it's 1. So let's do that. Ah, yes, I've already exported them. Good. So he's all set. So this is desk lamp number 1. Let's call him that. Desk lamp 1 underscore low poly, and then we have our high poly here. So we'll call him appropriately. Desk lamp 1 underscore high poly. And essentially what we're doing is transferring the details from this model to this model. Okay, so let's go ahead and launch Substance Painter. And again, my usual spiel, this is a live event. There may be issues, problems, crashes, whatever. We'll work through it as need be. New version is available. Do I want to download it? I do want to download it, but I don't want to interrupt what I'm doing. Now, new. So we're going to have a new texture here. Our texture is only going to be 1024 because this is a small object, so that's okay. I'm going to say select, and now I have to travel to my stream folder. There it is. Work inside of here. I'm going to select the low poly. There we go. I'm going to say open. And I'm going to say OK. And now here it is. Voila. Very nice and easy. So right away we're going to do a couple of things. I'm going to turn off the background so we're not distracted by it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit on these so I can see them quite well. And now it is time to close that. There we go. Now it is time to generate our masks. And I'm going to show you how we do that inside of Photoshop, and then later we have some that I've already generated the masks, so we won't have to worry about it. So to begin with, I need to bake my textures. So I'm going to go up here and choose Bake Textures. And now, out of all these options, the only two I don't need or don't want are the ID and the thickness. I don't care about those at the moment. So now I'm going to put this to 1024, and under High Definition, High Poly, I'm going to choose my model. So there he is, HP, open, and I'm just going to click Bake. Now we wait just a moment, and you'll see already here, you can see, might be difficult to see on stream, but there are some lines generating here. And now if I look at the model, and especially if I zoom in a little bit, you can see, as I move the light, it's baked our details down into our low poly object. So you can see with this being our low poly object, and with the fact that on screen in the game, it's never going to be much bigger than this, there was no need for those additional details in the model. So that's something to take into account, is not only what details are you going to need, but what details will be ultimately seen in the screen, on the screen rather. Okay, so that's good there. Let's go ahead and save this. This is a good starting point. So I'm under, oh, here's lamp 1. I already started this earlier, but that's okay. We're going to do it together because I wanted to make sure you guys got the full experience. So stream, work, and I'll just move it later. Desk lamp 1. There, see, already started it, but I'm going to save over it. Okay, so here we have our lamp here, and one of the things we need to do is we need to set up our materials. So I'm going to go over here and choose a folder. I'll call this base metal. So this is going to be the standard overall metal. Think of it as what is the general metal that this thing would be made out of. And if we look at our concept art, which I've got docked over here, I'll bring it over for a moment. So we're talking about this guy up here in the corner, which I wish I could. Come on. What is it doing? The whole computer just kind of froze a little bit like that. That was strange. Come on. What is it doing? Am I hitting a lag spike? I want to see this object over here. There we go. That was interesting. Might still be interesting. You know what? It doesn't like this. I'm just going to bring it over here. Okay. Yeah, that seems to have trouble with that, so I apologize. I won't do that anymore. I don't know how I'm going to show that to you. Maybe in Photoshop? Maybe I could launch it in Photoshop. That might be a better, easier way to do that. Since we're going to use Photoshop anyway, maybe we'll just use that. There it is, lights. Okay, hopefully that'll work better. Okay, so this is the light we're working with right now. So let me zoom in on that guy so you can see him. Okay. So this is the idea of him, and we're going to need to do some painting and figure out how we're going to work out some of these details. Not really going to be that hard, but for the starting point, we need whatever this metal is here. Okay, so let's go back to our object here, and we're going to choose a base metal. I'm going to choose a smart material, because what this will do is this will take into account all of the maps that we just generated here by doing the baking, and it will use those to get a much better starting point. So I'm going to choose something, and let's just see how it comes out, and we can make adjustments. So here's a chrome blue, just fairly nice. Maybe something a little different. We'll delete you. Try something a little different. Maybe a worn out metal. These do have to be a little dirty, but we're going to make it dirty later on. Curious what this would look like. This is technically glass, but it's a little too Star Trek-y for me. All right, let's find something really good, and we'll just stick with it. No, I do want it to be metal. Oh, that could be good. Nice and damaged and kind of pre-worn a little bit. Let's try that out. See how it looks. Ooh, I kind of like that. Lighten it up a little bit, but that'll be good. Okay, so we'll start there. We'll get some pre-worn in there. Maybe I can affect that. Yeah, we could even take out some of the grunge. Yeah, take out some of the dirt. Actually, that dirt's pretty good. Color variation. Base. Okay, here. So we can lighten it a bit here. So let's do that. We'll lighten it up a little bit. Good. And metallic, not quite so metallic. Somewhere in that range. A little bit rougher. And there we go. That's a good starting point. I like that. Okay. So that's a good starting base metal. So we'll just leave that alone. Let's go back to our reference here. And you can see we have this large light here. This middle part needs to be a different color, and we got some screws and some general seam lines. So let's go ahead and load up the model here. And I'm going to do a couple things. One, I'm going to choose my tool here to create smoothing groups from UV shells. Give that a second. I noticed the model in the paint editor is a little jagged. You can tell if you look at it here, you can see some of these lines coming across. And that's because of the smoothing groups that have been applied in the original model. So I'm going to change that out really quickly. And it's super easy to do. This is actually one of the pilgrimage episodes that I did. So I'm going to save my project first. I'm going to go back to Max. And now that I've corrected the issue here, I'm going to export it again. And what I'm going to do just for posterity here is you'll see here, this is pretty cool. Stream, there it is. Work, desk lamp 1. I'm going to call this desk lamp 1 smooth underscore LP. There we go. I'm going to give it a different name just so that I don't accidentally overwrite it in case I need to go back to it for any reason. All right, so here he is. So we're just going to go up to Edit, Project Configuration. I'm going to select a new mesh and select the corrected mesh and say OK. And now give it a second to load. And that actually got worse. Wow. That's never happened. Okay, well, never mind then. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. That is interesting. Wonder why that happened. Well, we'll look into that, but for now, let's go with what we got. Let's start making some changes. So I'm going to go into Max here. It might be from here, actually. That might be what the issue was. Now that I think about it, that probably is. I'm not sure how to fix that at the moment. Okay. So we're going to bring up our UVs, and we need to save out some texture maps here. So I'm going to save out. Now these are different from the ones that we baked. These are our UVs. So if I click that button, you can see here we have where all the UVs are going to end up. So I'm going to save that to our folder. So if I bring up our folder here, which is stream desk lamp 1, I'm going to call it UVs. There we go. And then I also like to save out another one here if I change these settings to solid and turn off all the edges and say render UV template. I now have what's called a solids map. So this shows me the solid areas. So I can save this out. Solids. There we go. So I'll save that out. Okay, good. So now that I have that, we can minimize Max again. I'm going to bring it up in Photoshop here. So desk lamp 1, solids and UVs, open. There we go. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it into this file. I'm going to rename this as UVs. I'll rename this as solids. And for UVs, I'm going to set it to screen. So now that allows me to kind of see through them. And if you look now, I can see where all the lines are, where everything begins and ends. But I also can see the solid areas underneath. So now we can start to figure out where we want to put things on here. So for example, if I bring this up, this area here, I can see I have to come down a little bit and then go for a bit, but I need to stop before too long, right, to create that effect. So I'll bring this over here so we can keep this open as a reference to our to our light here that we're building. So we'll do that. And we can work with our textures over here. So this is what we're building. All right, so let's start creating some folders here. So I'm gonna create a folder, call this light, and I'm gonna create a new layer in there, and I'm just gonna create a rectangle shape. I'm gonna have it be white, and I'm just gonna guess at the moment. So I'm just gonna say right about here, and go down for 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. There we go. So that's it, pretty simple. So I'm gonna hit save. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave this as a Photoshop file to begin with. And I'm gonna say, this is gonna be our desk lamp 1 mask, okay? So I'm gonna save that there. Now what I do is, back in Max here, I can collapse all this, there we go. I can actually assign it here to check it before I move it to the other side. You can see here I've got multiple things here where I've done that in the past. So I'm just going to use a new one. I'm going to assign a new material, and for its diffuse texture, I'm going to point to this PSD file. The reason being, I can keep changing it and saving it. Max will accept it, but because it's a PSD file, I don't have to collapse it yet, so it's very easy to move things around. So you'll see in just a moment. I'm going to select this, say OK. I'm going to choose the collapsed layers and say OK. Now the one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the coloring all the way to the top and drag, and as you can see it's already applied. So now if I turn off my edged faces, you can see what we get. I can see sort of a solid color version of my lamp. And now looking at this and comparing it to my reference, which for some reason works over here but not on the stream window. Let me just zoom in a bit more on this guy. Okay. So I can see that this actually comes down a little too far, and this needs to go up a little bit. So to do that, it's super easy. I jump back over here, and I can edit this and say, you need to come up a bit, and you come down too far. And now here's where it's super handy to turn on your UVs, because I can turn my UVs on, and if I make this object semi-transparent, now as I work with this object, I can look at this and say, how many of these links does it come down? I can look over at Max really quick and compare with my reference sheet over here. And if I do turn on edge faces for a moment, I can see that, well, according to the reference image, it looks like it kind of stops at about this third link. See if we go 1, 2, 3 edges. That gives me a huge clue in here to say, okay, so I'll count down 1, 2, 3 edges. That's actually right about here. So that tells me how far up or down it needs to come. So I'm going to try and get that to be right about there. Save it, or save the alteration there. Do that, uncheck, save, and back over to Max. And now when I click to refresh, now that's looking a lot better. That looks a lot more like the light that I'm seeing in the reference image. So that's good. So we're going to save that there. Now, one of the things I need to do is get the stripe down the middle. So an easy way to do that is to actually open up, or rather to go to Painter, and I need to save out these textures. So I'm going to save these textures temporarily. So I'm going to go Export Unity 5 Standard. Don't worry, I go over all this in a pilgrimage episode. I'm just kind of speeding through it a little bit for this evening. Let's go there, Stream, let's go there, Work 1, Desktop Lamp, select folder. So I want to select everything. I want them to be Targas. There we go, 1024s, and export. And it's done. Really, really fast. Back over to Photoshop, and I'm going to open up and choose, there it is, the OpenGL. And yeah, it must be something in the high poly object, so we can correct that later to get these, you see how it breaks it up like that? It should be totally smooth. So we can break that up later. So I'm going to select all of this and copy it. I'm going to bring it into this layer as a guide. So we're not going to keep this, but it just has it here as a guide temporarily, because what we need to do is generate a selection mask for this area. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say select multiple, and I'm going to choose starting right there. And I don't want this line because that's actually part of it. I need just inside that line. So I'll go down, 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 down. And I'm going to go through this because we're going to come back and select by hand, but I need to select that much, come down, keep selecting. I need to go all the way to about there. There we go. So now this is, we're going to start selecting here in order to choose that interior edge, okay? So I'm going to select all of that, and I think I need all of that too. I do. So I'm going to select all of that as well. There we go. And we can get a large swath of this, but we do need to do some angled selection. See, I can get up to about there before I have to select manually, so to speak. Okay, so now let's go over and choose our proper tools here and get a good selection going on. I'm going to do that to there, to that, to that, to that, and back up. There we go. So we got that done. Now we need to do the other side. So just select this, move over here. Again, I actually don't want this line that I'm on, so I'm going to undo that and start over here instead, so I can stop shy of that line. Okay, come all the way down. Come all the way down. Come on. And there we go. Okay, so I'm going to stop shy of that line right there. Sounds good. Now we can select the rest of this. All the way through here. And I need one more. And now I need this again. And there we go. There we go. And this makes it very quick and easy to select these areas. There we go. All right. So we've used the normal map in order to select these details, but we're not actually going to keep it, so we're just going to hide that. So now if I say new area, and let's call this the stripe, is that striped part in the middle. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to use white again. I'm just going to just paint all that in there. There we go. Now obviously this can't stay white because this is white, and we need to have different colors for our selection masks. And I'm going to move the stripe actually beneath the light, because the light needs to be physically on top of the stripe. Oh, but it's actually inside. There we go. There we go. But what I can do is I'm going to call this a stripe, and I'm going to save again, and let's just check it in Max and make sure that it's looking good. As far as it's right down the middle, it's right where it should be. It connects seamlessly at the top. Yep, everything looks good with it. So what I'll do is here in Photoshop, I'm going to give it a color overlay, all right? And I'm happen to leave it at this color, but what you can do is you can eyedrop and choose from your reference image here. So I can say this is the color of the interior. There we go. Whoops, that's off screen. There we go. Click that. Now you can see it's colored appropriately. So now when I hit save and check it out in Max, it's going to start to look like its final product much more quickly. And since it's a unique color to our guide here, we can use it to kind of select by color in a moment inside of Painter. Okay, so we're almost done with our selection masks. We do need to create just 2 more little details, and we'll be all set to move on. A little bit of cleanup here. I'm going to call this light, even though it's in a folder called light. Now above that, I'm going to create a new group, and let's call this holes, I guess. That's what they look like. I'll create a new layer. I'm going to select an ellipse tool. I'm going to have 1 in the middle here, and then 2 at the top, but I want them to be of a similar size, so what I'm going to do is make them carefully. Again, I can start with white, because I can always lower it. I'm going to make this about that large, try to center it, and then move it down here and get it to about where it appears in the image, right about there. So let's turn off the UVs, save, and take a look. And that looks pretty good to me, right where it should be. So we need 2 more at the top in these little areas here, but they probably should be a little bit smaller now that I look at it. So I'll zoom in on that because that's what we're going to do next. So I'll call this a bottom hole because that's the bottom hole, but I'm going to make a duplicate of it and then just move it to the top, and we'll combine them in a moment. So holding V and Shift, I'm going to drag this up. Okay, I got to do it multiple steps. There, right about there. And let's see how big they are. Yeah, it's a little big according to the image, just a little big. So what I'm going to do is make it just a little bit smaller. I'm going to say probably 80, maybe 75% of its current size. That's good. Right there in the middle is good. Make a duplicate, Control J. Hold Shift to go over again, center it right about there. And now I'll combine them with Shift E. And now I'm going to call these top holes, because there's two of them. Okay, but these also need a unique color. So what we're going to do is do another color overlay. We're going to pick a new color. I'm just going to pick something crazy over here. There we go. And what I'm going to do is right click on this and say copy layer style and then paste it to the bottom holes one. So all of the holes will be treated the same. So we'll have the same coloring, they'll have the same layer structure, they'll have the same depth that we're going to apply to them. Okay, so this is all set. This is ready to roll. We're going to keep the background here like this just so we can select everything. So I'm going to say save, and now what I'm going to do is do a save as, call it a PNG, desk lamp 1 IDs is what I call it. Capital I, capital D, S. So these are the individual identifications of the areas we're going to be working with. So let's say OK. And I've got, okay, that's nothing important. Okay, so we're all set with that. Now we jump back over here. Here we are, we have our base metal in place. So let's apply the rest of ours. So I'm going to save our project one time. All right, so let's do the light itself. There we go. So what we're going to do is go File, Import Image, and we're going to choose our IDs image. So I'm going to say Open. There we go. So now that's in our project. So save again. And what we're going to do here is we're going to choose a material. I need something that is, let's go just a base material. We need a, you saw it there in the list, a uniform white. So that's what I'm going to choose. So a new paint layer, uniform white. I'm going to choose a metallic of 0, roughness, yeah, all the way rough, I guess. And I do want it to be very white, but not pure white. It has to be a little less than pure white. Pure white, you get problems when you do that. So let's not do that. Scaling of 1 is fine. There we go. And what I do need is a height to it. So a height of 0 is good. But now what I'm going to do is call this light, and I'm going to say add mask with color selection. So I'm going to choose that. It says ID mask is not found because I need to assign it. So there we go. And now when I say pick color, it's displaying my ID mask here for me, and I just click the white. So now I say I want this white area to appear only where I had the white in my texture. So there it is. But now we do have a small problem, is that our underlying normal map is overriding this. You can see that it's going right through the white. So we need to go in here and make sure that our height should be higher than that in order to overcome that. And for some reason it's not quite liking that. So we're going to have to figure that part out. It should be overriding it, and for some reason it's not. So you can see it kind of switch as I go back and forth. We could try a little trick. Let's try this. I'm going to do a new paint layer. So I have to manually paint this. But what I'm going to do here is say height only, no color, no metal, no rough, height of 4. And I can give this the same mask so that I only select that area, and that's fine. And now when I paint, no, it's definitely just overriding everything. You see that? As I paint across, I'm painting only height information right now. But as I'm painting height information, I'm not overdoing the normal map underneath. So we may need to figure that out as far as that goes. So that's okay. That's totally doable, not a problem. All right, so we'll come back to the light in just a moment. We got him in there though, so that's good. You're all set. Good job, light. Let's add another. So we'll add a new layer. Let's call this the stripe. Okay, so the stripe we want to be underneath the light, but it has to be above the base metal because we are going to apply some coloration to everything. So add a new fill, and we want this to be a uniform color is fine. It says uniform white, but then we can change the color. So I'm going to choose from Photoshop. Let's find out what this color is. Okay, here he is. So 1:16:12:11 for RGB, but the problem with that is that doesn't translate to this very well. But I should be able to just pull this way over here. There we go, like that. So just selected from another screen, I selected the concept art. So that way we don't have to translate everything. So say 1 on that. Put that in here. And now another thing you can do, I'll show you a secondary example here, is on the actual stripe layer, I'm going to apply the masking. So I'm going to choose the ID mask. Pardon me. I'm going to pick the color, pick that color, and now there we go. So now that's working properly. The coloration for this is only going through the areas that we have set up. So it's not going through the middle here because of the way we set up the coloring. This is a normal map artifact, so we'll figure that out. No problem. Okay, so that's pretty good. Pardon me. So now all we have left is our little holes, but we do want to make one change to the light. So we need to add a texture layer or type of texture, a channel if you will. So here I'm going to say add, I want emissive. Where is emissive? There it is. So I'm adding emissive to the project, and what that allows us to do is to have things that emit light, and that's how we're going to be able to choose to have our textures as far as the light actually give off light. So if I turn on emissive for this channel, you can see now I have an emissive color. So I'm going to choose close to pure white, somewhere up in there, like that. There we go. So this layer now, which is just that, will now give off light. So if I bring up the, let me save one more time, view, toolbar, there it is, post effects. Okay, so let's switch over to that, activate post effects. One of the things we want to do is glare. So if I activate the glare, if I move around the light, we should see it. See how that really reflects the light off of there? Well, I need a whole bunch. Let's see. Okay, come on. There we go. Lower threshold and a higher tolerance. Now our light can actually be giving off light. So we can change around. I think I like a bloom a little bit better. So now our light is giving off light only from the areas that we've chosen to be emissive. So for example, if I were to create a new layer here that's just a paint layer, and if I just say change nothing else except now I want you to be emissive, I could even have it be a totally different emissive color. So if I just go in here and just paint some squiggly line, it's now emitting light from that spot that's that squiggly line color. So obviously that's silly and we're not going to be using that, but it's an interesting technique that you can use, so I can now make my light actually look like it's giving off light. And see, it's so powerful you can't even see it in there when I paint other things on there. But I can paint directly on the model here, or I can paint on the textures here and have it show up on the model. So either way. Alright, so that's all done. Let's go ahead and save that. Obviously, save a lot because you don't want to have problems. I'm streaming. Live now painting some lights. Okay, twitch.tv/. Okay. Just a moment. Some people had some questions about how they could watch the stream, so we want to make sure they come in here too, right? Okay, so we have our light now, and it's generating light, and we have some good materials. Let's go ahead and add the little holes. So we'll add that, so we'll call this holes. There we go. And we'll just go ahead and start with applying this. Pick a color, that guy. Okay. So now, let's add a uniform material to this. So I'm going to say fill, throw that in there. I want to add a dark metal that's going to be for that spot. Let's see, is this a good one? Sure, that'll be good. This is a dark metal. It's going to be inside the recesses here. So dark metal, and I'm going to affect all of its channels here, all of the properties of this. That's actually not a good metal for that. Let's see if I can pick a better. I need access to some of the properties that I'm not getting from that. Nice thing is I can just change around the material on a double click there. Just say double click new material. So we could even go all the way down to a uniform color. That's probably metallic roughness. Oh, height. There we go. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted all along. So the height, I'm going to set it to a negative value because I want these holes to be depressions into the surface. I want it to be fairly rough, a little bit metallic, but I do want it to be kind of metal. Let me pick a darker metal, something like that. There we go. There we go. Okay. So they're just little holes in the surface. There you go. You can see them up there. Not really a big deal because, again, this is going to be this large on screen. So, you know, these holes are not that prolific. All right. So now what we're going to do is add some dirt. This whole thing needs to get super dirty. Nothing is clean in our game. It's a dirty future, and that's okay. So let me refresh this just to make sure I'm seeing you guys properly. All right, so here we have everything. We're ready to start painting the dirt. So I'm going to create a new folder just to organize it. Call it dirt. And what I like to use is this uniform black. So I will say new paint layer, uniform black. And I'll call this ground dirt because that's what it's going to be. And drag and drop it into the dirt folder. Now, I'm going to add a black mask to this, and on the actual mask I'm going to choose this button here and say add generator. So now the generator shows up and it says, well, pick your generator. I say okay. There's one in here called ground dirt. There it is. And you'll see right away my model has some dirt on it. I've got some dirt towards the bottom of it, but the top is very clean, and that's what I like. This ground dirt, it works in using a position map, which we have here, and the position starts at the bottom and works its way up, and so it starts to get the most dirty here and it trails off. And I have complete control over this. I can, first of all, I can randomize the dirt, which I really like, but then I can also choose and say how high is the dirt on the model. I could go all the way to the top if I wanted to, or I could keep it real low, like just the surface of whatever it was sitting on is how it got dirty, which is kind of what I like, so I'm going to choose that. And then the level here controls how much dirt. I can make it really thick, like it's been dragged through the mud, or just a little bit of dirt, like it's been dirty and unkept for a while. So that's what I'm going to choose, something like that. There's a nice subtle little variation to it. So let's go ahead and click save on that. Okay, good. Now we're going to add multiple layers of dirt. That's why I did that. So we're going to add another layer of dirt. I'm going to call this Unidirt. So it's like universal dirt. Let's use black. Put it in this folder. Doesn't matter which layer, but I might as well just put it on top of it. And we're going to add our black mask. Whoa. Oh, I chose bitmap. Sorry, the first time didn't make sense. Add generator, choose generator, and choose MG dirt. And this is just overall dirt. You see how it gets some dirt up here, kind of all over the place. I like to just hit random a few times just so I don't end up with the same variation each time. So just something like that. I like this pattern on the back of it. That's why I chose it. No other real reason for that. And now we need to make some changes in here. So we're not using a custom grunge. We don't have to worry about that. The amount of grunge, we can change that up. See, I can make it really dark. I'm going to make it a little darker just because we're going to see this from a distance. I want to make sure it's visible. And the dirt level, no, it's fine, something like that. Not too much. Random. Okay, I like that. And the contrast, definitely want to lower the contrast on this. Don't want it to be quite so standoffish. There we go. So that's the dirt, and this one's pretty close to done. We can add a general AO dirt if we wanted to. Let's see, it's looking pretty good. We'll add one more. One more can't hurt. I like to do some scratches too. That's a good one. So let's do that. So let's add a fill layer. And this one, instead of uniform black, I'm going to choose a uniform white. I do want it to be absolutely white. I want it to be pretty rough, but I do want it to be very metallic. And the reason being, this is going to simulate the idea that the edges of the object have been scratched and the paint is worn off, and what we see underneath is the raw metal that this thing was made of originally. So we're going to choose that. I'm going to say another black mask, so it's none at first. And then we add a generator, and there is a generator for that. Let's see, where is he at? Edge damages, there we go. So you see if I zoom in, it's way too much at first for this object. It's crazy, but let's give it a little bit of randomness. There we go. And I can change down the intensity of the damages, very low here. And the level, perhaps we can bring that down as well. Somewhere around this. Just something to kind of break up the edges a bit, give us that occasional chip in the paint look to it. And again, some of these details, okay, I'll update you later, thank you. Some of these details may not be caught by the user, so I tend to revert to myself and say, pump it a little bit more because we're not going to see it too well on screen. So there we go, that's looking pretty good. I think we'll call that one good and we'll move on to the next one. So there's that guy finished. Very nice. Let's make sure that, of course, we name things appropriately. So edge damages. Put that in the dirt category, even though it's not a dirt itself. It is